and welcome to the right room where life never stops teaching. My name is Celeste Camps,
And I'm Jane Parmel.
and today we have an interesting episode for you. This is going to be fun. We have somebody on that is a makeup artist. We haven't had a makeup artist yet. And what's interesting about her story is not just her artistic work, but the challenges that she faces and the things that she learned to do to not only uplevel her business, but built her own little empire in of a few years. But she also learned a lot of things along the way that we wanted to share. And I think that it's going to be something that is a little bit different. And if you are listening to us completely on audio, this might get a little confusing because our guest is my sister, Lynette Demar, and we do tend to sound alike. So
Well, I'm just an observer today, and they're gonna have a conversation in stereo. There you go.
it's about what it's going to sound like. Anyway, welcome, Lynette Demar.
Hi, how is everyone?
Hi, welcome to our room.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Very good to have you. We were talking. Celeste and I were talking amongst ourselves during the week, gearing up for this interview, and we were talking about how people uh, grow their businesses, how they change things up, how they start with one focus and then they move into something else. So did you start out in this business? I mean, how did you get to this point where you are? Like, to give us a little bit of your backstory.
Okay, well, backstory was definitely was into art. The one thing that I did from the time I was a child was that I was able to look at a photo or a picture, I should say, and I could duplicate it by looking at it. Wasn't tracing it, but I could just look at it. And especially when I was younger, I could actually never look at the piece of paper. Just look at the picture, and then when I was done, I would look over at the paper, and the item would be there. So it wasn't until I went to makeup school that my favorite makeup teacher, turns out she did the same thing. Was She had all this artwork, and I was amazed by it, but she said the same thing as myself. It wasn't something she could necessarily create in her head, but could look at a photo and duplicate it. So to this day, I actually regret that I did not turn in a picture that I, it's silly, but it's true. Frosted Flakes, the tiger, they had a competition to do a Tony the Tiger picture, and I did one. And I thought because I didn't do it from my head, it couldn't be entered. And then realized years later, no, I should have entered it. Uh, but um, and then as far as how I literally got started with makeup, it was purely the woman who did my makeup for my wedding. Anytime I came into the salon, she's always commented that she thought I had a natural talent for when I did my own makeup. And I expressed an interest and in becoming a makeup artist as well. And so the same artist that did my makeup for my wedding trained me. So trained with her, and then she said, "Hey, just to get even more technical skill and confidence was the big one. She felt with me was confidence. Was to go to Cosmic School of Makeup Artistry in Fort Lauderdale, and so that's how all that happened. But the art background was definitely there when I was young.
Was your launching pad? That's cool. That is really cool. So you said that I love the fact that you were talking to somebody. It almost sounds like in passing, you're going into the salon and just happen to be talking, or just your appearance walking in gave off this air of confidence in how you could do makeup, and you were able to talk. And then that's what we like to do here in this on this podcast is, maybe it's not gonna hit another makeup artist, maybe it is. Maybe it's going to hit somebody that's in some other sphere of business completely. And what you say, how you're working your business, how you're growing your business, how you've become more confident in it might actually hit somebody that's in, who knows, marketing or web design or public speaking or whatever. So, Celeste, where are we going with this conversation? Because I'm intrigued.
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting about Lynette's work is even though she has her own unique challenges with makeup, one of the things that we've discussed many times is just what she was saying, that confidence of going in. Because a lot of people, when they hear that I'm a public speaker, they think, oh, that is such a fear of mine. I could never get on stage and speak to a large group of people. And other people have told me it's one on one that they have their fear. But in talking to Lynette, and she talks about her own pressure she has in doing makeup for people is again unique to her, but I think speaks to everyone. And I think Lynette, we were talking earlier about what that pressure is for you. What is your unique challenge when you go to do somebody's makeup?
I would say the one challenge is that because I'm going to a different set of people every single weekend, some people I've met, we've done a trial. Uh, Many others, there is no time for a trial. So you are getting to see that person for the very first time. Some of my clients are not on social media, and I don't know what they look like. I don't know what their skin is like. I don't know what their personality is like. So you are going in there blind. And that in itself can be very scary because you want so much to make that person happy. I long time ago, talked to a very famous makeup artist years ago, talking about how nervous I am before these jobs. And she goes, honestly, Lynette, the fact that you're nervous just shows that you care. And that's the one thing that has stuck with me with even all of my clients all of these years later. And I've probably have done, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of faces at this point, but I still walk into every single job knowing that I want to do my best. But yes, it is scary that you're and it is a fear because and I do love, like I said, what somebody said to me just recently. Sometimes it's just a matter of accepting that fear and just doing it anyway. And that is kind of where I'm at with this. And even going to that job and doing some affirmations out loud in the car while I'm driving there, and was taught not to say as if it's going to happen, but to say as if it's already happened. And I'll say things, even though it may feel silly in the car, I'll be in the car saying, the bride is going to look in the mirror and go, oh my God, Lynette, this is perfect. This is what I wanted. This is what I was envisioning. And strangely enough, that is what comes to fruition. They do say that, and the bridesmaids. So I will say those things to try to bring that energy that I'm going to make these people happy. I'm going to listen to what they want. And communication with my clients is a huge one. Really learning what they're envisioning.
Yeah, I would be terrified to do what she just said because, like you said, people's skin, the oils on their skin, the what they use, how they're, if they have scars, how do you deal with all of that if you're walking in and you don't really have a chance to meet them, or like you said, if there's not enough time to get a background on them, how do you handle the stress of you know wanting to make them look good, but now maybe being presented with a challenge you weren't anticipating, or do you just anticipate everything?
Oh, and allergies.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's
everybody's
Yeah,
got allergies too. I'm sure that's something you have to also realize when you walk in that it's not going to give them a reaction.
right. And actually, that's one of the questions that you do ask. I mean, preferably, and it is, I'll admit, on the norm, these are conversations that do happen on the phone prior to me seeing the client. It is rare, but at the same time, majority of the time there is a conversation that is taking place beforehand. But more and more, because it is getting so hard to get people on the phone, there are those times that I am going in blindly. So I try to allow a buffer time frame. So where so many clients, they don't take in when they are giving me a timeline and they're telling me, hey, we want to be done at 5 p.m. I always make it very clear, but what time do you want to walk out the door? And they say, oh, well, we want to leave at 5. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I back it up by an hour. So by my giving that extra time, it will give me that time to get in the door and have a small conversation with them and try to get on the same page before I start pulling out my brush. So, has to be some form of conversation, but yes, I am going to go over allergies without a doubt.
And how do you deal with somebody who wants to stare at their phone the whole time you're trying to do their makeup?
Well, it is in my contract that
Oh,
phones are,
right.
I have it in my contract that phones are not allowed. I
Beautiful.
do make it clear in the contract that if a phone is to be used, that the client has to accept the fact and they have to initial it that they are risking being late. And I also make it clear that, yeah, you will be late. You have to accept that if you are going to hold that phone, and the job won't be as good. I'm not going to give you the look that you want if you are holding that phone. So, luckily, I do have them sign it on the contract. And I let them know to let everybody else in that particular bridal party or mitzvah group, they do pass on that information. So I've been one of the very fortunate makeup artists who actually don't deal with it. I think, one of the very few that has that in her contract.
But see, that's brilliant. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are looking at a contract of just their absolute service, but not an expectation of what they want from the person that they're servicing. I think that people are so afraid of putting too much in a contract that they don't realize how much easier their life would be when they you get on that understanding, that same page, and put
Yeah.
in these different writers in a contract, I think is brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
mean, I'm all for contracts, and again, when it becomes a 7-page contract, you're not going to walk into a makeup design hour with that. But you at least your bullet points, and I think it's brilliant that you actually do something that a lot of business owners don't do. You put guidelines, or I don't want to say limitations, but what you'll tolerate while you're trying to do your work. And I think that's so important, and I'm glad to hear that, somebody that actually does that and sticks to it over something as inconsequential as the phones, but it becomes so uh detrimental to what you have to do. It could become so detrimental to what you have to do. I think it's brilliant that you put it in there and you enforce it too. So,
Yes.
I leads me back to what you were saying about affirmations. Um, Guidelines, affirmations, things that give you the power, give you this empowered way to act with your clients. Do you get pushback on that? Have you had a problem with that? Or does it elevate you so that you don't have to deal with problems and pushback?
I the time that it becomes a problem is when that because I do a lot of bar and bat mitzvahs besides weddings, and in many ways, the majority of my work is mitzvahs. And there are a lot of moms who are DIYing it themselves. And so I do have a conversation with them beforehand, and I go, listen, because you are doing this yourself, you are going to have a lot of vendors calling you, wanting to know where you want this, or letting I go, you're going to have someone else be in charge of your phone. I said, because I'm letting you know right now, if you hold that phone in your hand with all the vendors calling you, you will be late. And that usually solves it. Yeah. But I have had some people push back and say, Lynette, I have to have my phone. And I'm just like, just as long as you're aware, this is you're taking a risk
Take your time.
of this. But usually they end up handing the phone and giving somebody else to be in charge of it.
Cool. Problem solved.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
And
great.
I like also for you to talk about the confidence that you needed to level up. because I know, just because you're my sister, that, that as you grew and your business grew and the demand for makeup by Lynette Demar really became in itself a status symbol. How did you decide then to it was time to raise your prices? And what was that process like for you?
Um, One of the big reasons for raising the prices, it's a long list of things. Obviously, the the one big one of obviously is inflation. Another is the cost of cosmetics. Obviously, has also gone up considerably. And it also was for me to target a certain clientele. And I did learn throughout the years that that certain clientele, they do have more respect for you when they hear a certain price point. And these are well-to-do people, and this is something that they do all the time. Have their makeup done professionally for these events, and it. I think it was mostly it was something that just needed to be done after working all of these years trying to level up. It was like, okay, there are so I can tell you that the majority of makeup artists out there are still charging what was being charged when I was being trained as a makeup artist. They're charging the same pricing from 15 years ago. And at that point it's unfortunately a set a bad standard for so many people in the industry. And of course, when I started out, my pricing was lower because I had to build up not only that level of experience, I had to build up that clientele. And then once my reputation got to where it did, because again, the because of where I live in South Florida, there is many ways a small community of those people that are wanting who talk amongst each other in that mitzvah environment. And the more and more my name got known, yes, at that point, I needed to set a standard for where I was experience wise. Just like I've told clients even years ago who said, well, why are you so expensive? My makeup artist last year didn't charge nearly that much. I've heard that quite a bit. Well, most makeup artists aren't charging that. And my answer has always been everybody is going to charge depending on their level of experience. I go, what somebody may charge coming fresh out of makeup school is not going to be the same price as, let's say, Mario, who is very famous, who does Kim Kardashian's makeup. He's not going to charge that same price either. So everybody is going to charge depending on their level of experience. And that usually ends the conversation and they understand. And if anything, they respect me more for that.
I'll vouch for that because back in the day when I had the event planning business, it was the same thing. If we did a bar mitzvah, a company in Long Island could do the exact same piece we did, and because of the clientele that they sold to, they would be able to get 3 times what we were getting for the same pieces, exactly the same. But
Yep.
again, it's that buildup of clientele, it's being in the right I think like life insurance people and real estate people, they always talk about a book of business. And I think that most businesses that are in the service industry, like Lynette is, like I was, you have a book of business. You want to make sure that you're getting to the same people all the time that that you can raise your value, or there's a higher perceived value of what you bring as opposed to someone else. So maybe it's your dependability, maybe it's the fact that you do an excellent job, maybe it's the fact that you are at a certain price point. They won't pay less. They won't have,
Well, actually, I'll tell you that I just had a woman who I did her daughter's bat mitzvah about 5 years ago. And she called me just recently and she said, Lynette, I always said that if I ever got married again, you would be the makeup artist.
beautiful.
And one of the night, and she goes, I have not booked a photographer. I have not booked a vendor or a location, a venue is what I meant to say. She says, I have not booked a venue. You're the first person on the list. And she gave me the nicest compliment. She said, the reason I wanted to make sure I got you, she goes, because Lynette, you respond immediately. Anytime I call, text, or email, you respond immediately. In the past, when I did my daughter's bat mitzvah, these vendors, they weren't responding to me 3 weeks until 3 weeks later. She goes, when you're in the room, she goes, you're such a pleasure to be around. You make the whole, event fun. And that was a huge compliment. So there was that part of me knowing there is a theme I've been told many, many times that there are a lot of makeup artists and hairdressers who actually flake out and don't even show up to the person's event. There are companies that hire out young girls, who are, maybe teenagers, young 20s, and they find out on the day of these people's wedding, these girls don't even show up. They're like mass produced companies. So that was another reason too, knowing that I am giving dedicated, individualized service, that my pricing needed to reflect that.
Excellent. And I hope that people are taking note of how important this process is, how important that you understand your worth and your value, and that when you start to market yourself based on your experience and your level of expertise, that people do respect you more. You actually have, I think, an easier sell of yourself when you're being referred, when people say, this is the only person I would recommend. There's a lot of cachet to that. And when you start to see that your business is doing that,
Right.
and yeah, now it's time to start looking at your pricing, because you could either do 10 people at this price or 5 people at this higher price. And now you're
Exactly.
working smarter, not harder. And all of your due diligence starts to pay off. Now, I also want to, because you are a makeup artist, we got to get a couple of makeup tips in here for us. But it's also, we know that men and women, are, especially the people that are watching and listening to our podcast, are business people, and you still need a professional headshot. And so, what do you tell the men who do not think that they need a little touch up?
Um, it is a matter of explaining how lighting will affect them on camera. Uh, there was a law firm that I went to, and the that hired me just it was all these lawyers, some men, some female, but most of them were men. And the man who's in charge of the law firm, he said, yeah, because even with these young, good-looking men who we didn't think needed makeup, we realized how completely washed out they looked on camera, and how they did need some makeup, and just how much more presentable they looked on camera. So, letting these men know, listen, we're not looking at doing lipstick and eyeshadow and blush, we're just going to give you just more of a flawless look so that your skin shows up better on camera. And they go, this is going to be a very simple, light application, but enough that you look more presentable on camera.
And do you have an example for them, for anybody who, for any of the men who feel a little pushback? You have a famous story, I think, that you tell some of your men clientele.
Ah, that was story. Yes, there was that famous story with John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon, where they approached Richard Nixon asking if he would like a little makeup, and he didn't want to look. He wanted to seem very masculine next to John F. Kennedy, and said, "No, I don't need any makeup." John F. Kennedy did do the makeup, and he just still looked so much more presentable on stage. And I think it was one of the first times that a debate was being televised, rather, because they said many times that if people only listened to them on the radio, it seems that Richard Nixon actually did a better job performing. But because of people seeing him visually and seeing a young, good looking John F. Kennedy, that unfortunately Not unfortunately, I shouldn't say that.
Well,
I take
depends on
that
what
back.
side you're on.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, 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 didn't mean that. Unfortunately, he did do a better job, I should say. But
I
yes,
think I think that speaks to, men often will push back. I'm not putting makeup on, and I think sometimes they have to really be told, listen, it is a question of that washed out look or that uneven look. You're not going to be putting, lipstick and they're not putting on high heels. They're just really looking appropriate and more professional, more polished. And I think that
exactly.
that's an awesome thing. When you can get past that, then you're worth your price. Let me tell you, if you could
Yeah,
get that through.
Right. And
yeah,
that's the thing too. Is that something you recommend people do for their headshot, that they get a professional makeup artist? I mean, somebody should do their hair as well. But
yeah,
when it comes
absolutely.
to makeup, yes, it's not something you should just do yourself.
No, you shouldn't, because what so many people also don't realize is that, drugstore, makeup, although some can be actually very good, unfortunately, so much of the makeup has an SPF in it. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when there is a sun protection in your foundation, it can cause flashback. That's why so many people don't realize that when they look themselves in the mirror and they think they look great, and then a photo is taken of them and they look white as a ghost, and that's flashback. So it is a matter of hiring that professional makeup artist who knows the right products to use, uh, the right foundation, the right powder, all those things, so that there isn't this flashback, and that when a photo is taken of you, it is so much more flawless, and the coloring is correct on you. And so yeah, even if you're someone who's used to doing your makeup on the daily as a girl, you know, having it professionally done, I have several clients where they had purchased every single thing that I had put on their face. I just did it for a judge just the other day. She was, Lynette, even though I bought all of the products, I don't know what it is that you're doing that it still looks so different than when I do it. So, it's just a different hand. It's just different hands. That and you're seeing that person spot on. They're just doing it themselves in the mirror. It's just different.
Right?
Well,
Different
but
hand
you
and
also
different eye.
understand what was that?
I said a different hand and a different eye. Like
Yes.
you were saying, that you had that ability as a child, I think is awesome. To be able to do that, that's you see things differently than other people see them. So,
Yeah.
Yes, he knows a lot about shading
mhm.
and contouring and
Contouring.
that,
Yes.
that yeah, I think would be very difficult to do on yourself, unless unless you have the expertise to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
and I think it's definitely worth the investment, because we are more and more in social media, and everything is so much more visual, and
Well,
especially
actually,
LinkedIn, they want people to be, if you want to be taken seriously, have a professional headshot.
the judge that I did, I mean, the big joke was when she showed me what background was going to be used when she became a judge, and they were going to take her judge picture to put up on the wall. She showed me the background, and I joked with her. I said, "Oh, I said, it looks like everybody is like a manager of Publix, for all of these judge pictures." And she died laughing, and I did her makeup. And to this day, she said, she goes, Lynette, you would not believe the compliments that I got and how her photo stood out amongst all of the judges. And she goes, so to this day, everybody's like, oh my God, we now have to really up our game. And one of her friends, who also just became a judge, declined using me. And the results were up on the wall of the night and day difference from when I did her friend's makeup compared to everybody else. And yeah, there's a huge difference.
That's a great testimony.
Yeah, yeah, it
It
was.
is, and but I think it's something that, we spend so much money on our marketing tools, yeah, to get ourselves out there, and the simplest thing. I mean, have your makeup done probably falls through the cracks or is not something that you think, well, filters will fix it. Put a filter on it, it'll be fine. But unfortunately, there is something to having it done that gives you that extra oomph and polish, like Jane said.
Yeah,
People should
absolutely.
recognize. Oh, and speaking of filters, how does that affect your work?
As far as when, a professional photographer does any editing on
Well, I
the
should say,
pictures?
but also people's expectations.
Oh, that's a big one. As far as social media, I will that has a big impact on what people are trying to explain what is real and what is not. So when I do have young girls and even moms who will show me photos on Instagram, you I do have to explain this is heavily filtered. This is not real skin. And you know, it's always been a joke amongst almost every professional makeup artist. And I didn't realize it until I joined so many of these forums with professional makeup artists and how they've all been shown the photo of Kim Kardashian. And so many women ask me, I want this makeup, I want something natural like this. And so what I've learned though is when they are looking at that photo of Kim Kardashian, I go, okay, first of all, I said, this is not natural makeup. What you're attracted to are the neutral colors. So she's got all browns and neutral colors. You're attracted to that. I go, but you have to understand this is heavy makeup, very heavy, a lot of contouring, but it's also been heavily filtered. So there is a famous makeup artist who runs a page who actually from the Emmys, there was all of these beautiful photographs of all the actors and actresses, and they all look so incredibly flawless. And he's an Emmy award winning makeup artist. And he goes, here are the real photos. And oh dear God, oh dear God, yeah, you see all these people are human. This, they do, it is not flawless by any which way is this flawless. You are seeing all the skin texture, you're seeing the pores, you're seeing the sweat, you're seeing the oiliness, you're seeing where the makeup really is not so perfect as what is being put in these magazines. And he goes, here's the real skin, here's the real makeup. So I purposely saved that post to show my clients, okay, this is what you saw in the magazine, this is what you saw on Instagram, here's the real photo. So yeah, unfortunately, uh all the filters, Instagram has really taken toll, I think, on a lot of people's psyche and their what they feel like they should be looking like.
Yeah, that's but
100%.
but again, it's nice to be brought back to the reality. And what I think is so great is uh I know that in over the years and you telling me about some of the experiences you've had with different clients, some great, some not so great, but at the end that how you are able to win them over. And I think that has to say a lot about your character and why your reputation is such because not only do you care, but you give everybody this sense of, I'm going to make you look beautiful. I'm going to make sure you feel great about yourself. But at the end of the day, it's people love you. They love what you are and what you mean to them. And I think when you are so great at conveying that to people that they understand it's not just the makeup that, people are gonna say they're beautiful. They're gonna say they're beautiful because they love this person. They're happy for the mitzvah mother and the mitzvah girl and her brother and and everybody. But I think you give everybody that little boost of confidence that they didn't have and until you walked in and you made them feel beautiful before you even started. And I think that is one of the best characteristics that you bring to the table. And I think that's also why people admire you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. I didn't even realize I was doing certain things until one of the hairdressers that works with me, Robert, had said, Lynette, he goes, you don't realize this, but you make every single client feel good about themselves. He goes, I notice that you always find something about them to compliment them, to make them feel good about themselves. And, I'll admit, once I hear a woman kind of tearing herself down, I actually do stop that and explain to them, just the power of our words and how, listen, I said, all of us as girls and women, we all want to look our best. And I said, so don't do that to yourself. And I will find something about them that really is beautiful. And I've never treated the job as a factory line. I really do invest my heart and soul into each person that sits in that chair. I truly do. I do put my heart and soul in there. And because I do want so much, because again, this is not a job that you do Monday through Friday. These are people who've spent 1, maybe 2 years planning these events. So most of my work, yes, is on the weekends. And then maybe I've got my trials during the week, the makeup trials, but the weekend is the main, chutzpah of my work. So it's it is really important that, yeah, this, I think that is what's different in what I do compared to some of the companies that have these where they just hire, you know, multiple different employees to just send out onto these jobs, is very different than the individualized service that I'm trying to give that particular person. Yeah.
Definitely. I have to just say, make one comment. When you started to say that you make them feel beautiful, there was a change in you. You just all of a sudden you lit up. You were just like, "This is what I do for them. This is the value I bring," and the confidence builder. I think, a lot of people may think that putting on makeup is like putting on a mask, but I think it's just it empowers people. It gives them more confidence in themselves. And you just saying it as you lit up, they're one shot deals most of the time. They're not gonna be doing this again,
Yep.
and you bring a confidence, and that's probably why you're in such demand, because
Thank
your
you.
character, it speaks to the person that you are and how you serve your clients. It's really amazing, and you
Thank you.
enjoy it.
Yeah, I
You enjoy it.
do. It really was funny is that it wasn't until I walked into that room of makeup school where it was the first time in my life that I realized I was where I was supposed to be. Because I'll admit, I was lost for so many years, and my interest was always in fashion. And then only to be in a room full of girls and a teacher who all also had that same interest in fashion. So it all just kind of came together where they also were looking at fashion design, and then it ended up with makeup. So it was a lot of years of truly being lost and going back to the art that I loved as a kid and somehow got away from it, but then ended up being right in this room full of people of like, oh, this is where I belong. Yeah.
I think we all do eventually find it, and I think most of us, if we do look in our past when we were about anywhere between 8 and 10, I think we all end up at the passion that we had at that time. It's very interesting, but I've heard many stories just like that. And I'm so glad that you did find something that you love because you are excellent at it, I have to say. She's done my makeup, not today, but because I live in New York. When I go to Florida, I look awesome the whole time I'm there. It's amazing. But I
There's your
wanted to say
unbiased opinion. Go right ahead.
yeah. But, Lynette, thank you so much for taking this time and telling us about your businesses, the unique challenges that you had, your amazing and brilliant solutions. And I just wanted to tell you, we are looking forward to having you come back to the
I would
right
love that.
and we'll talk more makeup tips and more ideas that you have in terms of your referral system and things like that, because I know you still have a lot more to share. So, with that, my name is Celeste Camps.
And I'm Jane Parmel coming to you from our first stereo right room. Thanks again, Lynette. It was great meeting you and great hearing all about you. And we'll
Thank
see
you,
you
Jane.
again in the right room.
Thank you both.